Imagine Michael Jordan facing LeBron James in the finals. Forget about that matchup causing a huge media circus. This might break the space-time continuum. This is LeBron James versus Michael Jordan. It's all that we talk about now, and Jordan hasn't played a game in 20 years. Imagine they actually played against each other in this day and age. So for this hypothetical matchup, we have LeBron and Michael both in their athletic prime. In fact, they were both 28 years old in 1992 and 2013, and they both played for incredibly stacked teams. The playing field is completely leveled. So who do you think will win in a hypothetical 7-game series? There's obviously no right or wrong answer here, but I'll reveal who I believe will win the series and the reasons why. But the first question we need to ask is, who would have home court advantage? It should be the team that performed better in the regular season and playoffs. The Bulls went 67-15, while the Heat went 66-16. In the playoffs, Chicago went 15-7, while Miami went 16-7. The Bulls had a combined record of 82-22, while the Heat went 82-23. The Bulls were just slightly better. But if you look at their regular season performance, this is where the Bulls get the edge. They had a 10.44 margin of victory, which is the 9th highest for a single season in NBA history. They had one of the most dominant seasons ever. The Heat were also dominant, but not as much. Their margin of victory of 7.87 points is just inside the top 50. So I believe it's only right that we give Chicago home court advantage. Now let's compare the roster of these two teams. Let's start with the away team, the Miami Heat. Here's what they average in the regular season and playoffs. On paper, this team is more talented. LeBron, Dwyane Wade, and Chris Bosh made the All-Star team, and they have a lot of quality role players that help make this team so special. The only concern here is a drop-off in production from Wade and Bosh in the playoffs, but we'll get to that later on. Now let's see the roster for the Bulls. Unsurprisingly, Jordan and Pippen both were All-Stars that season. Horace Grant has such an underrated year, and he even finished with the 3rd highest win shares in the league. And just like with the Heat, they had so many great supporting pieces that played their role to perfection. My only concern is that they relied too much on Michael Jordan during their playoff run, and that's what caused him to be a bit inconsistent at times. With that out the way, we can now talk about the matchup, and we want to see how the stars will perform. Let's start with Michael Jordan. He is going to be devilishly animated for this series. He won't have to make up a reason in his head to get motivated for this matchup. He's not going to just attempt to win the series or outperform LeBron statistically. He's going to look to rip his heart out, Lloyd Christmas style. And if all the GOAT talk between Jordan and LeBron isn't motivation enough, he'll also be looking to show the world that Dwyane Wade isn't in the same league. This is when Jordan performs at his highest level, is when he feels like he has something to prove. The bigger the stage, the better. And this version of MJ might have been the best one. He was the epitome of athletic greatness, where athleticism met the pinnacle of skill. He finished his season winning the MVP and the scoring title. But what I loved about this season was how much more mature he was. He did more things of a non-statistical nature that led his team to such a dominant season. He was more than willing to make room for another 20 points per game scorer to shine in the offense, which is what he did for Scottie Pippen. But when it was time to take over, he showed time and time again in the playoffs that he could. Like when he averaged 45 points per game on 60% shooting in the first round series against the Miami Heat. Or when he had that legendary performance at Game 7 against the New York Knicks. He had 42 points on 52% shooting, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 blocks, and 2 steals. And in the finals against the Blazers, he averaged 35.8 points, 6.5 assists, and 4.8 rebounds. That is currently the 7th highest points per game average in NBA Finals history. But wait, there's more. Take a look at his shooting numbers. He averaged 53% from the field, 43% from the 3, and 89% from the free throw. That's nearly a 50-40-90 split. That's the Michael Jordan that the Heat are going to have to deal with, and they're going to have their hands full trying to stop him. But the same thing can be said about LeBron James. The Bulls will not be able to contain this alien-infested player. What caught my eye the most was his versatility on both ends of the floor. This dude ran the Heat's offense. He shot threes efficiently. He was their best post-up player. He was unstoppable on the open court, and he defended the other team's best scorer on a nightly basis. He did it all for this team, yet he still had the most efficient all-around season ever. This is the same guy that scored over 30 points and shot at least 60% in 6 straight games, which is something that's never been done before or since. There's a reason why he nearly became the first unanimous MVP winner, and he should have won the Defensive Player of the Year award as well. Then in the playoffs, his clutch play is what drove the Miami Heat to the title, like when he made the buzzer-beating layup in Game 1 against the Pacers, or when he scored 16 of his 32 points in the fourth quarter of that infamous Game 6 against the Spurs. And then we have his remarkable Game 7 performance when he had 37 points on 52% shooting, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals. When this team has their backs against the wall, I have no doubts that he will step up and make plays. The question is, will he be able to keep up with the scoring of Michael Jordan? That is a very interesting topic, and I have a theory on this. A few years ago, Scottie Pippen gave us some insight as far as how he would plan on guarding James in a hypothetical scenario. He mentioned in an interview with Mark Carman that he would look to force LeBron to take more jumpers. And then Michael Jordan famously mentioned to Ahmad Rashad in their sit-down interview that if he had to guard him, he would push him left, because 9 times out of 10, he's going to shoot a jump shot. Then he finished by saying, "I ain't letting him go right." And guess when he said this? In 2013. Now obviously, that's easier said than done, but take a look at what happened in the finals against the Spurs. He shot a combined 30 of 80 from shots outside of the painted area. That is 37.5%. And in the first 3 games of that series, he never scored more than 20 points. There's no doubt that Pippen and Jordan would force him left every time to take away the drive. If they can do that successfully, then that would limit the production from players like Ray Allen, Shane Battier, and Mike Miller, who I rely on LeBron to get open shots from his drives to the rim. That's why I believe that the defensive greatness of Pippen and Jordan would limit LeBron somewhat. But that doesn't mean that the Heat wouldn't have a chance of winning this series. His teammates will have to step up big time. That's especially the case for Dwyane Wade. If he's averaging anything less than 15 points per game, as he did in the first 3 rounds of that playoff run, then I give the Heat no chance of beating the Bulls. He's going to have to score his normal 20 points per game production. The bad news is that Michael Jordan would be the one guarding Wade in this scenario. At that point in his career, Wade would only show flashes of his old self. And at other times, he seemed to surrender at the opportunity to take over a game. And it was mostly because of a knee injury that he was playing through. However, once the finals came around, he was able to play effectively through the paint, and he averaged 19.6 points per game. That's the type of performance that the Heat will need from him. But Jordan will certainly look to make him a non-factor. The same thing can be said about Chris Bosh, who was struggling throughout the 2013 playoffs. Against the Indiana Pacers in the conference finals, he averaged 11 points per game on 37% shooting and 4.3 rebounds per game. And it all culminated in Game 7 of the finals, when he laid a big giant goose egg. He had 0 points. If he's giving that kind of production, then the Heat would be in big trouble. But if they can get their offense to click, as it did during the regular season, then I would expect this series to go the full 7 games. However, if the Heat struggle as it did in the playoffs, then this series would end rather quickly. The Heat averaged 97.1 points per game for the 2013 playoffs, and that just wouldn't be enough to get it done against the Bulls. If they kept that kind of scoring production, that would relieve some of the pressure off Scottie Pippen on the scoring end, and the Heat are going to have a hard time trying to shut him down. The reality is that this is arguably the best version of Pippen. From an individual standpoint, This was the best year of his career, behind only his 1993-94 season. He could knock down jumpers, take his man off the dribble, make the right pass, and he was one of the game's best defenders. I wouldn't be surprised if he was the third best player of this series, behind only Jordan and LeBron. But if he's playing as poorly as he did against the Knicks when he averaged 16 points on 40% shooting, then that will open the door for the Heat to beat this team. But the key to the series would be the defensive versatility that Pippen, Jordan, and Horace Grant have. All three of them are quick enough to get to the middle to clog up the penetration from Wade and LeBron, or to obstruct an outside jumper. The Bulls were also less vulnerable to mismatches than any other team during their time. It didn't matter if Horace Grant was guarding a quick guard or if Pippen had to guard a center, because they made quick rotations that kept their double teaming effective. So the Bulls will have a good chance to keep the Heat under 100 points per game, which would allow Jordan to then take over offensively. So with my final verdict, I have the Chicago Bulls knocking out the Heat in 6 games. That is what I originally wrote when I talked about this series in my first book, and I'm sticking with it. But that's just my personal opinion. How do you think this series would fare? Who do you have winning this series? Let me know your take in the comments. Thanks for watching.